Hey everybody, this is Grandmaster Finegold here with Kid Chess for another amazing game. And this game really shows you what can happen when you don't listen to your chess coaches and develop your pieces. And in this game, White made too many pawn moves. Now, White was Bent Larsen. He was one of the top 10 players in the world for about 30 years. And Black was Boris Spassky, who you may have heard of from the famous Fischer-Spassky match in 1972. Boris Spassky was the world champion, and he was the world champion when this game was played in 1970. Okay, Spassky has Black. Now, Larsen played b3, which is an unusual move that we don't see at the top level very often. White wants to put his bishop here, controlling this really long diagonal, and that's called fianchettoing your bishop. And Spassky likes to play in the center, like we all do. Bishop b2 actually attacks his pawn, so he plays knight c6 defending it and developing a piece. And now Larsen didn't want Spassky to continue to play in the center with d5, so Larsen played c4. Okay, and knight f6. And now Larsen made a interesting decision. He played the move knight f3, developing his knight and attacking his pawn, but after e4, he has to move his knight again. So usually you don't want to move the same piece over and over in the opening, but okay, you have to now because the knight's attacked. He put his knight in the middle. Now, this is a mistake a lot of new players make, and in fact, a lot of experienced players make as well. They see a capture and they have to play it. Now, maybe in checkers, you're required to capture, but not in chess. Black could take the knight, that's okay. And then White would take back. That's just a fair trade. Okay, that doesn't really help White or Black, it just trades knights. But instead, Black made a better move. The world champion played bishop c5, developing another piece. And I always tell my students, don't move the same piece every move a different piece, get all your pieces active. Well, this is very serious now. We have two pieces attacking the knight. So he took the knight on c6. We could take either way, but he took with this pawn so that his bishop would have all these really nice squares to go to. And it opens the line for his queen also. He decided to take with the d pawn. Now, normally in chess, when you're looking at the opening, which this is, the first few moves of the game, usually White has the same or more pieces out than Black, because White goes first. And at the Grandmaster level, Grandmasters want to have the white pieces because they get to go first. However, here we see these two pieces are out and White only has one piece out. That's unusual. And the reason for that, obviously, is White kept moving his knight, moving the same piece, and now the knight's gone. So White made another pawn move, e3, which is good because it thwarts this bishop and lets his bishop get out. Spassky got his last minor piece out, bishop f5. The bishops and knights are minor pieces. The queens and rooks are major pieces. The opening, you want to get your minor pieces out. So that's a good move. Now here, Larsen played queen c2. I mean, moving your major pieces out isn't a great idea when you haven't moved your minor pieces out yet. Okay, now here, Black can obviously castle kingside, which is fine. But Spassky decided to play more aggressively since he had more pieces out. He played queen e7, getting his queen out of the way so he could castle queenside. Bishop e2, and then he did. Some people have trouble castling queenside. My advice is always move your king 2 squares when you castle. That'll take away the issue. So a lot of people who don't know the rules yet, they put their king here when they castle queenside, because then it looks like castling kingside. If I put my king there on this computer, it puts it on the right square. It knows what I want to do. I just didn't do it right. But yeah, the king goes 2 squares when you castle. Now this rook has a lot of open space here. Conversely, these rooks aren't so good. Okay, now he did it again after this long castle. Played f4, another pawn move. Moving his pawns every move. And that's a real mistake. And after f4, the idea is to control the center square. Now Black goes on the attack because Black has everything out and Black castled. Now Black's ready to attack. Okay, I mean, black moved almost everything that's important. So he played knight to g4. Not only is the knight in an aggressive position, but he moves out of the way of the black queen. Now the black queen has access to this diagonal because the knight's not on f6 anymore. And Larsen wasn't interested in Spassky playing queen h4 check. That didn't look good to him. So he moved another pawn, g3, stopping the queen from going to h4. And Spassky, he wanted to attack the white king, but the center is blocked. These pawns are blocking each other, and this pawn is blocking this bishop. This bishop's blocked by the pawn. He wants to attack the white king, but there's no way in there, so he decides to attack on the side of the board and break through that way. Plays h5. He's going to play h4, and he's going to bust open the king side. And after h3, kicking the knight out, Spassky made a brilliant move. This is why this is a famous game. Spassky made many brilliant moves this game. He played h4, ignoring his knight. He said, you can have my knight. I'm going to get your king. King is more important than a knight. Okay, so he took the knight. It's a free knight. And then black took the pawn, and that's a discovered attack. Now my rook is attacking your rook. This is actually a passed pawn. That pawn's almost promoting to a queen. So white can't allow rook takes rook, because then white would be losing. And if white trades rooks, rook takes rook, rook takes rook. Now black's threatening rook here check. That's too scary. So instead, he played rook to g1, making sure this pawn doesn't advance very much, or so he thought. Rook h1, the most brilliant move of the game. Now, I was giving a chess lesson about, I'm going to say 9 years ago, and my student, it was a one-on-one lesson. He was a very strong player. I said he couldn't figure out what black did here, so I gave him some hints. I said, well, the rook was going to infiltrate down the H file. Where did he go? And he said, here. And I said, no. And he said, here. And I said, no. And he said, here. And I said, no. And he said, well, there's one thing I know for sure. He didn't go here. And I'm like, that's right. That's the right move. And the point of that move is if you take the rook, black gets his pawn closer to promoting and attacks the white king. And rook h1 is a brilliant move. I wouldn't recommend this at home. And the reason black can sacrifice his knight and then his rook is because white's not getting his pieces out. So white's getting attacked by all of black's remaining pieces. After rook takes rook, pawn to g2, threatening the rook. And if you take the rook, you promote to a queen. Now the problem is the rook has to stay here, otherwise queen h4 check is winning. But the rook can't stay there, because then I'll take your rook. So there's nothing he can do. So he's just losing. He chose rook f1, trying to get rid of that advanced pawn. If he plays the obvious move, rook g1, then I play queen h4 check. You have to play king d1. You have nowhere else to go. And now there's more than one winning move. The best move is queen h1. There's no defense to your rook. And if you take my queen, I promote to a queen. This is your only legal move, and then checkmate. That's terrible piece placement. That's too passive. That's too far back. Okay, so he didn't want to get checkmated. He played rook f1. Queen h4 check anyway. The king moved over. He took and made a queen. Now black has two queens. And now white did something that I never recommend you do. Leave this to the grandmasters. I don't want to see you doing it. White gave up. He said, I give up. You're too good. Now, you shouldn't do that at home, but at the grandmaster level, when you're down a queen or you're getting checkmated, often they give up because they have no hope. That wouldn't happen in your games. You always have hope. Let's see what would have happened if he didn't resign. He would take the queen, and I would take this with check. Now you got two possible moves. Bishop e2. Now, black has checkmate in one move. Aren't you surprised? Mate in one. A one-move checkmate. Queen h1, checkmate. The king is trapped. It can't escape. And the bishop is pinned. We can't play bishop f1 It won't let me. It says, no, the king's in check. The other move that's not bishop e2 is king to c1. And then we play check. And the truth hurts. We have to go here and then checkmate because the bishop and queen make a battery. So that was an example of what can happen to you, even if you're a strong grandmaster, if you don't develop your pieces to good squares and you leave them all at home. And white made too many pawn moves. Conversely, black was just moving pieces. Black got the attack. He attacked the uncastled king with all of his pieces, and white was doomed, and white had to give up. Well, that was a game from the great world champion Boris Spassky. I hope you enjoyed this lesson from Kid Chess. My name is Grandmaster Ben Finegold. Stay tuned for more lessons. Bye.